Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. Our distinguished guest, respected principal, sir, teachers, and dear friends. I, Shaurya, on behalf of the Forbes Business Economic Society of Shivaji College, extend a hearty and warm welcome to the webinar on redefining marketing. The Business Economic Society has been organizing webinars for the academic session 2020-21. The webinar provides an excellent opportunity for faculty members and students to engage with economists, policymakers, and practitioners, people who in their day-to-day positions apply their knowledge and insights in academic pursuits to some of the world's most interesting developments and challenging problems. Today, the department has organized a webinar on redefining marketing. And for this, we are honored and privileged to have among us Dr. Rajan Saxena, a management expert, academic, writer, and former Vice Chancellor of Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai. We welcome you, sir. I also take much pleasure in extending a warm welcome to our principal, sir, Dr. Shiv Kumar Sehdev, Head of Department, Ms. Iti Dandona, teachers, friends, and participants. Shivaji College is an esteemed college under the flagship of University of Delhi, accredited with Grade A by NAC and Grade A under the Illustrious Star College Scheme, an initiative of the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. It is an honor for every one of us that we are celebrating our Diamond Jubilee year. Over the course of 60 years since the college was founded, we have achieved great milestones in academia, infrastructure, cultural enrichment, and community service, with a vision to transform society as well as the nation. In the wake of the global pandemic crisis this year, the college has shifted to online platforms and become a state-of-the-art, technologically advanced institution under the guidance of our principal, sir. He's the face of the change of this college in the new normal. I now invite our principal, sir, Dr. Shiv Kumar Sehdev, distinguished academic in the subject of mathematics, to welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Rajan Saxena, and enlighten us with his words of wisdom.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajan Saxena ji, all esteemed participants, dear colleagues and dear students. I am very happy that Business Economic Society of our college has organized today's webinar on a very important topic of redefining marketing. And today we have with us Dr. Rajan Saxena ji. We know that he is a well-known name in the industry and academics. He is an expert in marketing management and company strategies. He has served many reputed institutes in various capacities. He is an alumni of Delhi University and has been advisor to many leading Indian and multinational companies. So it's my proud privilege to welcome Dr. Rajan Saxena ji. Thank you very much, sir, for sparing time for my faculty and students. I am sure that my faculty and students will enjoy your talk. Thanks a lot for coming and being with us today's evening. And I'm sure that you all will get benefited with this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for those kind words. 2020 has been a tumultuous year, and the COVID-19 pandemic has drastically impacted all spheres of life. As everything around continues to evolve, the marketing strategies have undergone a serious makeover. At a time when social distancing continues to be practiced, traditional touchpoints of marketing have transitioned to smart marketing. A lot of companies have emerged as e-commerce giants. This webinar will enlighten the participants regarding the corresponding changes in the marketing strategies, making them more impactful by aligning them more towards customer preferences and at the same time keeping other stakeholders contented. We are honored by the presence of our distinguished speaker, Dr. Rajan Saxena, today. Before I request sir to throw more light on the dynamics of marketing, it is my greatest pleasure to take you on a short journey through his iconic career. Dr. Rajan Saxena is an institution builder, marketing academic, and an author in marketing, corporate strategy, institution building, and leadership. He held the position of Vice Chancellor of Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai, from 2009 to 2020. Prior to this position, he held the position of Director IIM Indore, IBS Gurgaon, and SP Jain Institute of Management Studies and Research, Mumbai. He's a graduate of Shri Ram College of Commerce and PhD from Delhi School of Economics. Dr. Saxena started his career in academics at Delhi University and taught at XLRI Jamshedpur, IIM Kolkata, SPJMIR Mumbai, Narsi Monji, IIM Indore, University of Calgary, Canada, and Pace University, New York. Dr. Saxena has also published over 80 articles and 24 cases in national and international journals, and 2 books on marketing management and international marketing published by McGraw-Hill. Dr. Saxena has advised leading Indian and multinational companies in areas of branding, marketing strategy, and organization structures and leadership. Some of the companies with whom he was associated are Parle, Bajaj Electricals, HDFC, BSES, ISPAT, Jindal Iron and Steel, RCF, and Hoist Agrevo. He has trained over 20,000 executives in India, Sri Lanka, and Cameroon. Dr. Saxena was a president of ISTD and held leadership positions in management education and higher education in AMDISA, AIMS, IMA, and FICCI, and was conferred awards for institution building, leadership, teaching excellence, and distinguished alumni. One of his most recent awards was AIMA's Keval Noharia Award for Academic Leadership in Management Education. He's a recipient of many honors such as Dr. Suresh Ghai Memorial Award, DNA Hall of Fame Award, and ET Now Visionary Leadership Award. And he received the Berg Education Award in 2014. He has also been on the boards of several public and private sector companies. He was conferred fellowship by ISTD and IMCI. He has co-founded with other educators and industry professionals the Open EdWorks, which is a consulting, training, research, and network organization. The Open EdWork goal is to assist transformation in organizations, especially education institutions. It is indeed a pleasure to have you here, sir. And now I request you to share your exposition on the subject of redefining marketing.
Thank you, Shaurya, for introducing me. Thank you, Principal Dr. Shiv Kumar Sadev, for your wonderful words of welcome, and also all those who have joined this session. Thank you, each one of you, for being over here. I must, at the outset, thank Ms. Iti Dandola, who reached out to me. I don't know how she got across my ID and my name and others, and so therefore I'd like to thank you, madam, for you reaching out to me, which was a pleasant surprise, especially in the pandemic period when the travel and everything is not there, and so therefore thank you very much for inviting me. Also, I must apologize for the last time's cancellation to you all because of my ill health, and I was totally on the bed because of my backache, and I had to really excuse myself from all the engagements in that particular week. So thank you once again for bearing with me, folks. The topic that we are talking about and the theme that we are going to be talking about in another about half an hour to 45 minutes. And I would admit, and I would like each one of you to keep asking me questions, keep putting down your questions right there in the chat. I'm going to open up the chat box on my right after some time, and I'll take a look at those from a little bit later. But if you want to really interject at any point of time, just simply raise your hand and ask a question. So that the session doesn't become a monologue, but it truly becomes a kind of a conversation, as I would have in my own session when I'm in a physical kind of a classroom itself. Well, we are living through today. We are living through some very, very interesting times. Let me share my screen with you all. So let's all look at it. I think you'll all agree with me that we are all living today in a very, very interesting time period. You all are the people who are really driving this change. Uh, I believe for certain that the demographics that we have in this country is the reason why a whole lot of change is really occurring. Apart from the fact that technology and the pandemic have really created this kind of a disruption in the market, I'm of the view that the young market today, the young and an aspirational market that has come about because of each one of you, is the reason why we are talking about this entire topic called redefining marketing. Now, let me just take a look at why I'm really saying so. It's a fact that the entire demand pattern that one would have witnessed, let's say, not just prior to pandemic, but even before, let's say 2000 or before 2010, the entire pattern and the forces driving that demand were very different from the forces that today drive the demand. For example, one of the behavior, one of the nature of demand was that, and consumer nature was, and the consumer behavior was that, well, they would, nobody would want to wait. Everybody would want to buy. Everybody would want to consume today and right now. So each one of you would really be interested in immediate gratification of your need. And it wasn't just simply the need, but even the desire to really get something bigger and bigger and better, and to be a part of the peer group is the reason why the demand started changing. The forces of demand started changing. This whole nature of demand and the customer behavior is the reason why the marketing started changing from simply being a production driven to a more consumption driven. And I have often said in my sessions many a time, and somewhere in my book I've written that there's been a time in this country, in the world, when the entire market or the entire world suffered from affluenza, a disease called affluenza. We are all aware of the term called influenza. Influenza is a flu that we talk about. Affluenza really is the term that I just coined from the term called affluence. So almost each one of us was in the game of affluence buying for the purpose of affluence. So whether this was, let us say, some of the branded shirts, or this was one of the branded dresses, or it was, let us say, the Levi jeans, or it was, let us say, the Reebok shoes, or let us say the other kind of things that we talk about, or let's say even let's say the phones, the mobile phones. If my friend had an iPhone, then I need to also get an iPhone, or I need to get a smartphone. And to be up against my friend, I would buy the technology, one of the most recent technology, the latest technology. I would also change my phone from time to time, every time that there would be a new kind of a technology that was getting introduced. So this whole part that came up in marketing is the fact that, well, there was a demand and there was a supplier push that was happening, really to get that kind of a market share. So let me go to what I said today, that one of the biggest kind of a reason why I say this is that all this really led towards a whole lot, this whole demographic structure that has changed over a period of time has today created an opportunity for innovations. And it isn't just merely the innovation that remains at the product level, but even in the services or in the process part of it, there's been this kind of an opportunity to innovate. Take an example. How many of you would have thought that you would be buying from Amazon, say, a decade ago? None of us would have ever thought about it. how many of you would have ever thought that, or your parents would have thought that you're going to be using the digital products or digital payment methods to make the payment for what you're buying. It isn't just merely the credit card that I'm referring to, but the range of digital products that are there today. Whether this is, let us say, the UPI kind of a part, that is, or let us say the NEFT or RTGS, that is the internet banking, or the debit card, or for that matter, let us say the mobile payment systems like the Paytm or Google Pay and any of them. All of this really meant that the here and now, there is an innovation opportunity. India today presents a huge innovation opportunity for almost everybody. And one of the kind of a factor that will drive the economy up, and that will really push up economy in a post-pandemic period or in the pandemic period. 2020 was bad. We were all down. We see today the early growth area. If you were to look at the reason why this kind of a growth is coming, is that one, there's a customer. Two, there are young entrepreneurs, young innovators like you all, who are looking at a situation, who look at a situation or an environment and see it as an innovation opportunity and create a product structure. Or let's say the communication models that are there. Across everywhere, I see this kind of a thing really happening around almost every day. I get that kind of an innovator coming over and talking to me in terms of what is it that he or she could do in terms of marketing the product or the solution itself. There's one thing for sure, and therefore that I see this. The technology today that we are talking about has virtually redefined the markets, apart from the demographic, which really changed the pitch, the demand pitch, or the forces of demand. The technology has redefined the markets and the products. And since it has redefined the markets and the products, it becomes important for us to just take a look at a few of those kinds of a part that I'm really referring to. For example, if you were to look at the reach of the marketeer, conventionally the marketeer had reached out to each one of us through the intermediation process, which was going through the whole lot of a distribution channel in this country, starting from a wholesaler and reaching up to the retailer. The last mile accomplishment was through a retail network itself. Now, obviously, it posed a challenge. For example, in the Northeast, to be able to reach out to in the Northeast or in the hinter towns of India, it was almost impossible because there was hardly any kind of a retail network that was available. So technology helped in this regard. And it just didn't help there. It helped even in terms of expanding the market through disintermediation. So the moment, there was a direct outreach that was there through e-commerce channels like Amazon, Flipkarts of the world, or direct marketing by the company itself, by the company's website. Company created its own kind of a website. Its own website became an e-commerce site. Facebook, or let us say the Twitter, many of these became the e-commerce kind of tools in the hands of the company itself. So therefore, from that kind of a point of view, the market got expanded as a consequence of disintermediation. But along with the disintermediation, there was a third thing that happened. There was a re-aggregation that happened. Now, what was that re-aggregation? Today, you have the portals, for example. You would see a whole lot of portals where it isn't just merely one brand that is there, but almost every brand that is there. And the customer has a choice So customer is really empowered to make that kind of choice and pick up a brand and a price that is comfort, that he can afford, and the brand and the product that suits him the most. So therefore, what has happened as a consequence of which, that I have always that I say, the intensity of competition has now increased. And this competition is not just merely from the well-known brands now coming in among the well-known brands, but it comes up from some of the most unknown kind of suppliers, unknown firms, unknown artisans who are there and who are selling through Amazon. So you really pick up the product. You like a certain kind of a product. You place an order, and from where does it come? It comes from somebody whom you have never met, whose brand you never know, but you wanted that particular product. So it may come from, let us say, Varanasi, somewhere in the remote areas of Varanasi, from a supplier, for example, who doesn't have the resources to reach out to the national market otherwise, or may come from, let us say, somewhere in the east, or as I said, that I recently ordered some product, one of the products, and from where did it come? It came from Rajasthan, somewhere from Jodhpur. And who was the supplier? It was some local producer. It wasn't really some well-known company that we are talking about. So therefore, what I say, there's an intensity of competition that has come about among the brands. But then one of the important things that is coming up is that the credibility of the players has now become extremely critical when we start looking at it. If you look at it recently, Hindustan Unilever came up with an announcement that the brand that they had sold all along in the young women market, called as Fair and Lovely, they said that this was a wrong kind of a communication that they had, and therefore they changed the brand. And you all know what the new brands want. The honesty of the brand has now become important. So honest brands in a digital marketing space have now become so critical. Transparency in marketing today has become important. Marketing governance, the governance itself has become today a very big thing as we start looking at it. Please keep it in mind that if any one of you would like to ask me a question, please raise your hand, and would somebody really help me, getting some of those questions over here. We are also seeing the shorter product life cycles because of the technology, because of the competition. We find that more and more efficient products are coming in. As I said, the classical example is that the iPhone, how Apple, for example, kills its own products from time to time and comes up with some of the most recent, some of the latest products. Or for that matter, let us say, some of the other companies that have done that similar kind of a part. So more and more new products. And it isn't just merely products, but there's an product ecosystem that has got developed. Increasingly, companies are talking about a product ecosystem getting developed, a brand ecosystem getting developed. So you would have iPhone 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever these are there. And at a given point of time, there would be 3 series that would always be competing at different price level. So price is not a fixed point, as I have always said. Now, price is a range that we are talking about it. In a digital marketing space, that has become a critical part because that helps to reach out to the customer. So if the customer is a price sensitive customer, he has a choice to really pick up the product at whatever the price level that suits him. And if there is a customer who is not so price sensitive, can possibly pick up the whichever brand and at a price that he would want it to be. As a consequence of this, markets have today become hyper-fragmented. They're not just merely small, large segments, but these are fragmented markets itself. These are smaller and smaller groups that are there. They are kind of like price groups, price-sensitive groups, or technology-sensitive groups, or maybe a features kind of a part of it. And again, from a socioeconomic point of view, once again, within the same kind of a socioeconomic group, you would find different kinds of customer groups coming up because of their lifestyle, personality, and some of the other parameters that are there. So what is the focus today of marketing? In a pandemic period, and at a time when the competition is so intensive, to my mind, there are three kinds of pillars that become important in marketing. Many a time when we talk about marketing, immediately the word is to say that, well, it's all about customer. I, for one, feel that it isn't just merely knowing your customer, but it is also talking about how do you gain competitive advantage. And so at the same time, it is also about ensuring that the brand is sustainable over a period of time. If the brand is not sustainable over a period of time, then no matter how aggressive you are in marketing, no matter how much of money you are spending in the market, you will not be there. The brand will get killed. So the brand sustainability is a function of not how much money you have in your pocket, in as much as looking at it from the point of view of how closely you are connected to the customer. What kind of a view do you have of the customer? Do you really understand the needs of the customer? Do you really have a 360-degree view of the customer? What product is he buying? From where is he buying? At what price is he buying? Why is he buying? And not only so, how is he getting to know you? What are the various kinds of ways by which you can really reach out? So the customer may be buying it in physical space, maybe buying it in the digital space, maybe buying it directly from you, or maybe buying it from let us say a retailer's kind of a digital channel. No matter from where the customer is buying, fact is, do you really know what do you really have a 360-degree view of the customer? So marketing is about understanding the customer, certainly, but it is also about competition, and it is about sustainability. I'm today convinced that unless and until we talk about sustainability in marketing, then the marketing remains incomplete in today's kind of a context. So understanding of marketing is on the basis of these three pillars that I really talk about it. So when we come to the customer, what is it that we must all be knowing about it? What is it that we should know about it? And why? And all this will then get fed into when we talk about digital marketing, when we talk about technology-driven marketing, everything gets fed into the analytics, the customer analytics, and that analytics then will help the marketeer take the appropriate decisions, whether this is with regard to the product, or let us say with regard to the price, or with regard to, let us say, the communication, or service, or whatever that we are talking about it, or the individualization that the customer may be wanting. So a couple of things, for example, demographics, we are all aware about it, as I just mentioned. Where does the customer live? It isn't just merely urban and rural that we talk about. This is something that is a very, very common kind of a way by which we try and understand the customer. But then, is it simply the urban and the rural? You would find that a large number of tier 2 and tier 3 towns have today emerged. For example, in Delhi, and the Delhi in which I grew up is very different from what it is today. Today's Delhi, for example, you have a whole range of small towns nearby, which by any stretch of imagination would not have counted let's say a decade or two before. For example, a town like Sonipat or Rohtak, or let us say Meerut, take an example, right? Or let's say some of the other NCR kind of small little towns that are there, close by. These would not have counted at all whatsoever. Today they are as much a hotspot for marketeer as let us say Delhi is today. So what I'm saying that one has to understand that where does the customer live? Where does he work? What kind of an environment is there? What kind of an where is he really working? What kind of an occupation the person is in? But apart from that, I think the first three are easier, as I say. The more difficult are some of these areas, which is what we as marketeers often fail to really connect. And why do we fail to connect with the customer? Because we do not know how do they socialize. For example, I want to reach out to the young population, young customers in the age group of, let's say, 17 to 21 or 22 or 20, 25. Now, I need to understand where are they socializing. Their socializing, their socialization behavior is entirely different, let us say, from the one which people of my generation would be, or let us say people of the generation of my, or let's say in the age of 30s, or those who are in the 40s, or those kinds of an area. So the socialization of how do people socialize, where do they socialize, and which is where the social networks today have become so very critical. Instagram, Telegram, Signal, WhatsApp, Twitter, or for that matter, let us say the various kinds of portals that you are talking about, where many of you are really chit-chat, is something which is interesting for us to really understand. I remember when I was heading the management schools in India, the IIM, or for that matter, let us say at MIMS, one of the most important kind of a portal that I would ask everybody to really follow and would look at it on a consistent basis in terms of understanding what the young students are really looking for and what were they conversing, what were their concerns, what were their aspirations, is a website was a site called as pagalguide.com. And almost every MBA aspirant was there, chit-chatting about the institution, about their career aspiration, about what they know about the products, what they know about the program, etc. And almost everybody who is writing today for the MBA entrance exam is right there. And now, for example, and subsequently came up the subsequent other kind of channels like Inside IIM, etc. So what I'm trying to say that we need to understand that with whom and where is the customer really socializing, and what is cool in your words, what is cool and what is uncool. That's another part. For example, how comfortable are you with the fact that you would have people dressing up in an entirely different manner or in their own way, some of the most weird ways. In our times, when I was growing in, we used to call them as outliers. Today, they are a part of the mainstream. So I think it is important for you to take a look at it. As a marketer, we tend to look at it. What does he do? And in his leisure time, for example, how does he spend time on the leisure? What does he do? For example, one of the reasons of the growth of OTT, right, like Netflix or Amazon, and if you look at the customization that Netflix and Amazon today offers, is the reason why many of us are there on these kinds of channels itself. So I think it is important to really see that where is the customer really spending their leisure time? One of the kind of studies and web index today checks, monitors, how much time does the customer spend or the individual spends on the digital medium. What it found was that almost about pre-pandemic, each one of the individual or the young customers like you all would be spending about 2 hours or 3 hours on the various digital kind of communication tools that are there. In the pandemic, this is increased by almost about 24%. It was a study of the last year, 2020. So web index, or let us say some of the other studies of BCG and others have pointed to this kind of a direction itself. How do you communicate? How much time do you spend on the social media? What do you consume? And what excites you? What excites me is different from what excites you. As a marketeer, if we don't understand this, I'm afraid we are in for failure. And this is important because what is happening in a dynamic world, this part is really changing. What is exciting the customer today is different. Almost every quarter you would find, or every year you would find something or the other, changes happening around. For example, today, the mystery or the thrill in speed, for example, or automobiles at one stage that held that kind of an excitement is no more now there, as opposed to, let us say, the technology products. Technology products hold the attention of each one of you. Perhaps many of you look at it. How much of you get really interested when there is a new technology product getting introduced? For example, a new version of a mobile phone or a smartphone itself, or for that matter, let's say a new kind of a social channel, the social communication channel like Telegram, etc. And how many of you very quickly shift from WhatsApp to, let us say, Telegram? How many of you very quickly shifted from let us say WhatsApp to Signal, for example? Or how many of you really got onto Twitter? And when Twitter, has had these kinds of little problems, and you find that, well, there's a big brother kind of an approach which the government seems to have now with the conversation that is happening on the social media, you tend to look at it from an entirely different approach. And there's going to be new products that are going to be there, which would perhaps be very difficult to be, sort of broken. So the signals should be broken. So what we say is, I think we need to look at how you are communicating. What is it that excites you? What is it that engages you? What are your concerns? And what is your worldview of the entire part of it? So customer today, as I say, in this digital world, is a producer. He isn't just merely a buyer. You are also a producer. User-generated content, right? As we say, UGC, not the University Grants Commission, as we all understand in academics, but the user-generated content. How many of you would have posted your own videos on Facebook? How many of you would have put up, let's say, your own photographs on the Facebook? How many of you would have really forwarded, or let us say, put your entire scripts there? Many of us as teachers write books. We wait for a publisher to pick it up. Publisher acts in a very, very funny manner. Publisher has his own terms. Some good publisher would have his own terms. Today, I don't have to wait. I can publish it directly through the open media or open source, right? So I am today a producer. I'm also a marketeer. So what do? You immediately, the moment you produce, you immediately circulate it to your entire group on your social media. And that in turn creates a word of mouth. And it has been seen today that this kind of a word of mouth and this kind of let us say, adoption that happens on the digital medium is much more than what it would have happened otherwise. So therefore, consumer is today a producer and a marketer. And as a consequence of which, from a company's point of view, it is important. And from a marketing point of view, it is important. How do I integrate this consumer with me? What he is producing, how do I really use it to market myself? And you would have seen, for example, a whole lot of our testimonials that many of you would have put up on the various kinds of, let's say, travel portals and others. If you would have gone to, let us say, different places, some cool pictures and your own photographs, etc. The resorts would use it. The cities would use it. Those kinds of tourist places would use it. The airlines would use it. Whatever the way that you really do that kind of an endorsement, you find that the marketer starts using that. When you buy a product, for example, from Amazon, once you have bought the product, you would find, or you would have selected a product, you'd find immediately the pop-ups coming up. The Amazon throws up a whole lot of similar products, or who would have bought earlier this kind of a product. Plus, at the same time, the level of satisfaction or their level of endorsement itself. Now, you don't know them, but they are the customers. Now, Amazon integrates that kind of a feedback, and you use that kind of a feedback for the purposes of taking the decision as a customer. So, this is a very interesting kind of a change in the relationship that is today occurring or has occurred between the consumer and the marketer and the firm today. This is a very, very interesting kind of a change consequent to the technology itself. From a competition point of view, very clearly, we need to really understand who's the competitor. As I said right at the beginning, the competition is not just merely from the well-known, already established companies that you know, the brands that you know. For example, the university education, the higher education today, have the biggest challenge. Never have we really accepted that, never have we really seen this kind of a challenge to our supremacy. Why? Because we were assured of the demand. We were assured that you will all come to me. Shivaji College was assured that, well, if I'm going to be selling, if I have a BCom seats, my seats will get filled up. But then you are saying that, no, I may come to you, but I would also like to learn. I'm going to be learning from some of the other sources too. So when you are attending the class today, you are actually accessing multiple kinds of sources of knowledge, and you become an important kind of a contributor to the class. And when you become an important contributor to the class, a teacher who isn't prepared may certainly find that, well, he or she is in the midst of a competition. And therefore, there is that kind of a power game that happens in the class. But apart from that, the fact is, in a digital medium today, it is now the online education, which has now become so very, very important. Pandemic today has virtually, sort of already created that kind of a change. And I have always said it would have taken me many, many years, if I remember very clearly. It took me almost more than a decade to really convince my faculty to start to get onto technology. But the moment the pandemic occurred, or let's say last year this all happened, there's a very quick transition to technology. Almost everybody took to technology like a fish takes to the water. And this wasn't merely India, but the world itself. And so therefore, one of the US university presidents said, and I quote, that he said that never would it have been possible for us to achieve such a kind of a rapid transition as it has happened today. Now, that is one part. But the fact is that online lecturing is not just really adequate. In an online education, a whole range of tools has now become important. Now, if you don't understand, as the faculty, we don't understand those tools, then we lose out to many other of those kinds of companies like Coursera, which are there, which are offering a whole range of online courses, the MOOCs, for example, the massively open online courses itself, who today offer a whole range of products and the courses that are available to you. The most important thing is now, therefore, in this kind of a context, how do you create a value which is superior to the customer, to the competition, where the focus is on the brand, focus is on the brand's performance. In education, for example, it is the focus on the university's performance. It is the focus on the faculty's performance. It is a focus on the product's performance itself, the graduates whom you are teaching, it's their performance. And the third is, as I said earlier, can I integrate the customer to co-create a solution? Keep this in mind that today is a day not of products, but of solutions. Companies compete on two bases. One is a brand ecosystem, right? And the other is the entire solution. For example, Gillette, and it's a very famous example that I gave. You know, Gillette at one stage had really lost out in the shaving market, shaving system, because nobody was really wanting to shave because of the kind of the risks that are there of using the blade and cutting your skin and consequently a whole lot of problems that were occurring. Earlier, Gillette used to have those kinds of blades that were there, the conventional razor, as we say. And the cost of shaving was becoming a very, very big kind of a concern. So therefore, what did Gillette do? Gillette came up with a twin blade, which was safe, which won't leave the cuts on your face, on your chin or anywhere. And it didn't stop there, but it launched a range of shaving foams, shaving creams, and the aftershave lotions, the moisturizers, and almost everything that an individual or would need for the shaving purposes. But they realized that it wasn't just merely the men who needed that, but even the women who were also the customers. So therefore, there's a very interesting kind of part that comes up. Now, how do you really co-create this whole solution? And the way to look for that is to really understand who your customer is, the very first part, as I just said. And if I can really involve the customer, and today with the technology, it's truly possible. The individualization is possible today. And as I have often said, nobody is a better warrior than the customer. If the customer endorses you, believe me, you have won the war. Whether this is in a digital mode or it is in a physical mode, still the same holds good. It isn't the other way around. It isn't just really because there is a demand and you are able to, that you are there, that is what is becoming a different part. So rethink the marketing. Today, one of the most important things is rethinking the marketing. And one of the most important things is that of looking at it from the perspective of personalization. Personalization has now become important, where almost every one of you personalize everything that you buy from wherever you are buying. And how does that happen? From a marketing point of view, I understand, for example, who is Shaurya? What does Shaurya really look like? What did he buy, or what does he buy for his clothes, for his food? Where does Shaurya go to eat? With whom does he interact with? So I start identifying the individual target market. Like Shaurya, how many customers are there in, let us say, only simply Shivaji College? And like that, how many of them are there in, let us say, South Campus? And how many of them would be there in the entire Delhi University and then nationally itself? So I start identifying the target market. And from that point of view, I start then creating what I call it as an opportunity to individualize. The differentiated value proposition comes from an individualization. It is not from the product, please bear this in mind. It is not from, let's say, the wrappers or how big a product is or small the product is or how better the product is from vis-a-vis the competition. But it is from the individualization process that becomes important. And finally, it is the interaction and the customization, which I just said. I mean, the classical example is today, where, for example, the Twitter and the Facebook, is used extensively for the purposes of solving customers' problems and also for engaging the markets itself. Perhaps many of you you have posted your photographs, for example, and you all look for how many people really like it, how many people are following. And behind all this is something called as a game theory. So the game theory is what? How many am I really liked? And how many people like me? And how many people dislike me? The game is in terms of improving their likes and reducing their dislikes. That is the kind of a game. And so therefore, when you start and I gave you the example, Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, I mean, all these social networks, for example, today, or for that matter, let us say, YouTube, you would have these kind of things that are there. How many people are really looking at it? That is the critical part. Also, we realize that there's a group which is important, the group who come up, the social group that comes up. So through Sharia, can I bring the entire friends group of Sharia in it? Can I bring, let us say, some of the other students or some of the other friends, of students that I'm really looking at? So then in that case, Sharia becomes my spokesperson. So it's a group buying that has now become critical. And that's where we say social networking then becomes important. How does the company use the Facebook? How does the company use the WhatsApp? How's the company using Twitter, etc., for the purposes of what I call it as this kind of a communication of the group itself, the group becoming a part of this endorsement itself. Today, inbound marketing is as important as as marketing to the external customer. For example, as I said earlier, that the customer himself is a marketer. Can the same customer, can I cross-sell and upsell? For example, can I sell to Sharia if the Sharia has bought a t-shirt? Can I sell him the jeans? Can I sell him the footwear? Can I sell him let us say, the other sportswear, the accessories and everything? So I cross-sell. Now, if he has bought, let us say, a jean, for example, can I upsell a designer jean to Sharia? So I sort of upsell you. I take you up the brand. Now, what has happened in pandemic, this is something important that I'm going to be turning on to, is that it isn't just merely upselling that was there prior to pandemic. The pandemic has happened that there's a downward trend. Today, the customers are increasingly moving away from a luxury or a high brand or high sell or let's say a high price brands to, let us say, lower end of the product. For example, I wanted to buy a car and let us say I moved away from an Audi or from a BMW to buy a Honda City. Now, somebody who was wanting to buy a Honda City moved down to, let us say, buy a smaller other version or buy a similar car in the same category, but not Honda City. Maybe a Hyundai, maybe another kind of a product car, which perhaps costed him much lesser. So what has happened is there's this whole swing, which I was mentioning, within the price band is a very dynamic part. The impact of this, or why is it? Because of the external environmental forces. If the economy does well, if the income levels of the customers goes up, the disposable incomes will invariably rise. Today, the focus of the customer is to satisfy the core needs rather than the affluence needs. And that is today the biggest kind of part. So when I'm talking about inbound marketing, I think all this has now become important. The cross-sell, the upsell, the downsell, all this has now become important. So therefore, retargeting, as we say, Ms. Dandona, how much time do we have? Can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, you have time, sir. You can continue.
All right. So retargeting, so when you start, I think it is important not just merely to look at, let's say, Sharia, but then within Sharia, from Sharia, how does one really reach out? And so retarget So within that kind of a group, I further divide and further customize the entire part of it. So web-based kind of location-based marketing, technology today, for example, GPS today, the mobile phones on your has the GPS, and with that GPS, when you are traveling in that area, you would find that a whole lot of a you would get a whole lot of a push marketing happening there. How many, which restaurant is close by, which kind of a fast food outlet is there, which kind of a, let us say, retail outlet is there, which kind of a, let's say, soft drink outlet is there, which kind of a bar is there, what exactly, or a resort and everything. So the location-based marketing today has become reality with the GPS. As I just talked about the user-generated content, I don't want to spend more time on that, which is something. YouTube is a classical example of the user-generated content. Facebook, Instagram, the photographs that you all post, or let us say the various travel sites itself, and let's say the holiday sites which are there. Well, mobile phone is one of the biggest kind of a change driver which is there. So marketing is about speeding innovations. So it is all about speeding up the innovation. It is all about bringing innovations in the market at a much faster pace than even the customer can think about. If you look at the rapid pace at which new products get developed or new solutions are today coming up, leave last year aside, but until before last year, that is until 2019 and 20 February, I say that. You should look at the speed at which new products were getting introduced, the speed at which the new solutions were getting introduced. You would agree with me that it was even beyond, let us say, the imagination of the customer. For example, iPhone 10 has been, or let us say the mobile phones, the smartphone, let's say your Android phones have virtually, and the kind of progress that has happened in that, the speed at which you are able to today download the data and transfer the data have virtually today taken the customer, or it goes beyond the customer's imagination. Geo, for example, is one illustration of how Geo is innovating almost on a continuing basis. Whether this is an e-commerce site, the e-commerce platform, or it is, let us say, the communication platforms. Almost everything that you really look at it, if there is a continuous range of innovations that are taking place. So it's important. What is also critical is to really understand the laggard behavior. Typically in a product life cycle or in a new product diffusion, while on the one hand, there are going to be innovators and early adopters, that is those who are going to pick up the product much earlier than the rest of the market would be, there will always be a group of customers who will be the last guys. Will say, हाँ, सब लोग कर लें, जब तब पे देखेंगे, अरे कहीं ना कहीं तो किसी का फेलियर होगा ना, देखो इसकी वजह से हो रहा है, देखो इसकी वजह से मैं नहीं करता हूँ. So I look for more reasons why I don't want to buy. And the reasons to not buy is, I look for instances of the product failure. So such kind of a behavior is a laggard behavior. And from a point of view of the marketer, it becomes important to understand why are such kind of laggards there in any society? How do I reduce such kind of laggards? Is there a way by which I can reduce such kind of a laggard behavior? Or how do I deal with it? And there's a whole range of communication approaches that are there today, that are there, not just merely in communication, but even in terms of the product design itself. What I say is tear off the innovation, completely tear off what you have really done, and strip it off of everything that you thought will create a customer. And then look at it from the point of view of the product performance. Look at the cost and do a cost performance and availability gap analysis. And that then helps to reach out to these laggards. Core products itself, core services today. For example, in the airlines, why is it that the customers were not really flying? One of the reasons was obviously the price. So therefore, when everything was stripped off, and SpiceJet and Go Air and Indigo and earlier Deccan Airlines, when they came up and the budget airlines came up, you suddenly find that the traffic went down. So the important thing is to really start doing this kind of a part and start filling up that gap in our. So redefine the value proposition from all these kinds of perspectives. We have just mentioned about it, which I've just been talking about it. In today's context, there's one more part that has today become important, and that is the societal marketing. No marketer can today afford to ignore the societal needs. Environment, for example, is a very, very important part. You would find increasingly it has become important from a marketing point of view, and it is coming up as one big area in marketing called as the marketeer responsibility. Marketing responsibility, marketing ethics, for example, have become extremely important. For example, I should be able to tell the customer what is there in this product, what is harmful, not just merely to you, but also to the nature, but also to the environment. And it is for the customer to decide whether to really accept the product or not to accept. I think this whole balance is important. As I said, the balancing the objective of profits, customer satisfaction, and public interest has now become important. For example, almost many brands today talk about it, whether this is Apple, this is Amazon, this is Hindustan Unilever, for its brands, they today talk about it from that kind of point of view. So that's where it is. And it requires companies to be transparent. And also certainly, I think it is important for us to keep this in mind, that customers remember brands that stand by them, that are honest brands, not really those that are fluffy brands. As I say many a time, that there's a difference between the substantive brands and the fluffy brands. Fluffy brands are those that are sold on the basis of false promises and very, very attractive advertisement, very, very attractive models and everything. But the substantive brands are those that are honest brands. Look at it, what is honest and what is dishonest. And you as young customers know it much more. So marketing today is certainly about transactions between customer and seller. It continues to be there. There's simply no doubt about it. It is today going back to the core. It is relationship, certainly. There's no denying. Even in a digital marketing space, it is relationship. And in the digital space, this whole relationship has become far more important, but it is easier for us to maintain that kind of a relationship. But what is important is honesty and trust. So marketing has to be honest and trust. I've been repeatedly been saying this. Honesty is a very important part in today's kind of a technology world itself. Customer should remain engaged with the brand. So engagement has become important. If the brand forgets the customer, then in that case, the customer also forgets the brand. So I think it is important to engage the customer on a continuing basis. And how does that happen? Through new product introductions, through continuous communication, through push marketing, a whole lot of push marketing that happens through the messaging kind of services that are there. Plus, at the same time, problem solving. And also in the context of the consumer durables, also, following up with the customer from time to time. For example, when a car is bought, the car dealer gets back to you after 6 months, maybe after a year, after 5 years, or after 2 years. And it isn't just merely a service call, but it is trying to understand how the product is doing, and is there any other kind of thing that we could possibly do for you all. So keeping the customer engaged through technology, and non-technology routes. So offline and online. This is critical. Loyalty has to be built. And as we have been saying, so therefore the various points and rewards that come up. For example, what happens, and actually, you can motivate the customer. Today, it is important for the marketer to motivate. Take a look at, some of the products that are there on your wearable technologies that are there. Like for example, the health band that you would possibly wear on your wrist, and you would walk, and it would tell you, of course, how many steps you have taken, how many miles that you have walked. But it will also tell you what is the target that people of your age, your kind of a profile would do, and what was the best performance, and it would rate you. And with rating, they'll give you that kind of a stars or those points and everything. And if you exceed that target, it really claps for you. It really you get that message. Congratulations, you have really achieved the target, and not only achieved the target, but you have exceeded the target. But then it doesn't stop there. What happens next time? The target gets shifted up for you to look at it. Because now you have shown that you are capable of doing much more. So all these kinds of ways of building up this kind of loyalty, this kind of an engagement, this kind of a rewarding the customer is important, is now critical today. I've just talked about everything else, but there are three big parts that are now critical for us to really look at it. And these are the last three parts that are critical to us. One is understanding the big data today, that the data is not just merely the research that is showing up. But as I said, the whole lot of these social networks, there is a whole lot of communication that is happening on the social networks. The user-generated content, analyzing that has become important. So therefore, the analytics have now become important. Customer analytics, brand analytics, retail analytics. There's a whole lot of a range that is there. My time is not there to explain to you what these are. But keep this in mind, marketing analytics today have an important role to play, because on that basis today, the decisions can be taken. There's another part, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is what the machine has really understood. It's a machine, the computer is understanding. There's a whole lot of an algorithm that works in the product. And that really understands your let's say consumption behavior. And based on that consumption behavior, whenever you are there on that particular product or on that particular site, it really tells you that what is it that you would have bought last time, and what are the new things that are available to you. For example, on the YouTube, as I would open it up in the morning time, in the early morning time, it would let us say, if I have been listening to the spiritual music or spiritual let's say some kind of meditation music, right? I would immediately, that kind of a part that comes up. But that if during the day I've been listening to something else, it then pops up that part of that music. And if in the evening I've been used to picking up some TV serials or let's say some other kind of a mode of entertainment, then in that case it would show me that. So the time, my usage might be, and all that is getting analyzed right behind that. And that's where the artificial intelligence comes in. Now, the point is that how does the marketer use it? How does the firm use it? And this is extensively used today in product designing. Almost every product today, many of the products today, use the artificial intelligence. Your smartphones today is an example of an application of AI there itself. Everything that you are doing, your biometrics itself, it recognizes your touch. And the moment it recognizes your touch, or let's say your iris, it really understands who you are. And therefore, the moment it understands who you are, immediately a whole lot of other products and solutions also understand that. The IoT, which is there, the Internet of Things that are there today. And today is a day when we are talking about smart homes, we are talking about smart products, as Shari was talking about it right in the beginning, was in terms of the smart solutions and smart marketing. What is smart marketing? Smart marketing is this smart, because these are smart products today. So it's a smart product where you have the IoT, which is there. And one of the biggest kind of a contributor to the growth of IoT and the success of product is the artificial intelligence right there itself. It works on that kind of an artificial intelligence. Robots, for example, robotic vacuum cleaners and others that are there is an example of that kind of it. The robot understands, the vacuum cleaner understands, where to go and where and in what corner to really pick up something. So who is driving it? You're not driving it, but it is the machine that is driving it. So how does one really use this AI? And finally, for the purposes of, and how does one use the entire range of the digital technologies available to the market here? Not just merely for communication, but also for product design and other solutions itself. I today believe that almost every product is a technology product. The era of non-technology product has ceased to exist. That difference that used to be there has ceased to exist. So friends, what I'm trying to say, that if this is a situation, we need to look at it, what does it take to succeed in today's market? Well, obviously, we are talking about consumer insights and targeting. I'm talking about innovations. I've talked about it, and innovativeness. I've talked about personalization, substance versus fluff. This is something that this is so very common about it. You would find there is a very attractive ad and you would fall for it. And this is something that happens in education, for example. There are brands that extensively advertise. You fall for it and you suddenly realize, oh, where have I really got into it? This is not the kind of a peer group with which I wanted to relate. I don't think what they have really claimed in the ads is something that is really correct. So the difference between the facts and performance, that really tells you whether the brand is going to be substantive. I started with sustainability, and I think what is important is to understand that the substantiveness, the sustainability is built with with brands that are of substance and not really brands that are fluff. Digital medium, we have all been talking about it right now. So all this is something that has now become important for you all, and marketing has to be really understanding it. Thank you very much, and I'm now, if there are going to be any questions, I'm open to all those questions that any one of you would have. And please introduce yourself and please raise your question very quickly, and I will try and answer that.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your exploratory vision on the subject. It was indeed insightful and inspiring. I now request Ms. Aditi Gupta, Senior Faculty of the Business Economics Department, to take the queries of the participants.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir, for your inputs. They were quite deep. They helped to deepen the knowledge on the subject of marketing to the students and, of course, the faculty members here. So there are a few questions that I would like to take up from the participants. The first one comes from Anish. So he wants to ask, what can we do to generate goodwill and trust in the market apart from making good products? Sir, you are muted.
Well, I think by now you would have understood that what I have been saying is the honesty that is there in the communication. I think the goodwill is really built on the basis of the honesty in communication. And the second part of it is whether the brand relates to the customer. If the brand doesn't relate to the customer, no matter how superior a brand that the product would be, or how superior the brand may be, is going to fail in the market. Nobody is going to trust it. Nobody is going to really pick it up. Very interestingly, today we are talking about hand wash, right? In the case of the pandemic. Lifebuoy is a brand which is more than 100 years old. Hindustan Lever's brand. It is one of the most trusted soap in the market. And consistently over a period of time, they have been changing the communication from time to time. When they realized that they were in the midst of competition, not just merely from Hamam and from Lux, but Hindustan Lever itself came up with a whole range of luxury, or let's say the various other kind of soaps that were there, whether this was Dove or Peers and others that were there. Plus, apart from that, the other companies were there. They realized that there was a big kind of a market which was there in the area of hand wash, the hygiene part. But they found that there was a competition from Dettol. So what did they do? How does one get the customer to really use the soap? How does one ensure that the people use, let us say, soap to wash their hands before they eat anything? A few years ago, in one of the Kumbh Melas in Allahabad, what they did, they came up with that a brilliant idea to communicate directly. So when the customer would sit down in a restaurant and the roti would come in to let's say there, right, roti would be served to them. The roti had that name or would have a message. Did you wash your hands? And believe me, a simple message, only simply saying, not even the brand name was there. Did you wash your hands? It made many people to really get up and go and wash their hands. And right there in that kind of that particular restaurants or that particular kind of eating outlet, the soap which was there was Lifebuoy. So this kind of a part of being honest, of being with the customer, of understanding where the customer is, of having a 360-degree view of the customer, helps improve the goodwill and the trust. Believe me, one of the reasons why Hindustan Unilever last year decided to move away from one of their famous lines of Fair and Lovely, the brand that they sold. A promise that they said almost every girl looked for and used the Fair and Lovely. And that was for the purposes of, the fair skin, this kind of prejudice that exists in Indian society, for the fair skin. With the fact they realized that no, the values have now changed. It isn't just the skin that was important. There was more other factors that are there. So the internal strength of the woman was now more important. The inner personality was more important. And therefore they moved away from the term called as a fair to now what is called as more attractive or something like that, which is, I haven't really followed that, but they themselves accepted that this is something that they wouldn't have, that they did not. That is not really correct. And the same thing happened for the men too, where they had a similar version for the men. People, the men also used that kind of cream. Earlier, in fact, it was found that, that the young boys of Shaurya's age and maybe others, use Fair and Lovely much more than just simply the girls. So therefore, they came up with, based on that kind of a market need, the felt market need, they came up with a product for that. But they now changed it also over there, because now the whole meaning of attractiveness changed from the skin to much more inner kind of a strength.
Thank you, sir. So another question comes from Mr. Satya Prakash. So I would like to summarize this question. He says that we have a large share of GDP coming from the service sector, but as far as the manufacturing sector is concerned, the share of GDP is quite limited, and we are not able to meet our ideas so we are not able to market our ideas to be able to attract research and development in the field. So do you have any comments on that, sir?
I couldn't understand the question, Aditi. Can you just explain it?
So basically, he wants to know how can we monetize our ideas so that we can attract research and development in the field of manufacturing sector.
Okay, I think this is an area of a B2B marketing, as we say. This is not a B2C kind of a marketing. All along, we were talking about more of a B2C marketing. In a B2B marketing, I think it is just important is to understand how the whole business marketing happens. How do you really get more and more customers there? Now, there, the decision-making process has got to be understood in an entirely different manner from the way that we understand it in the case of a B2C kind of a marketing. What is important is the more one is able to quickly get the first few users, in any kind of a new idea being marketed, whether this is to the retail customer or to the business customer. The first set of innovators is very important. The first set of customers are extremely important. If one is able to get that first set of customers, and how do you get that first set of customers? It is through a superior value proposition itself. And the superior value comes up on account of multiple kind of factors itself. Technology, performance, service, and most important in the case of the business to business marketing is the communication and availability. Today, the day when you have to be available for 24/7. So if you are an entrepreneur, you have to be available to your customer 24/7. You cannot say, I'm going to be getting back to you after tomorrow. When I started doing when I started my career, and I particularly got into consulting world itself, way back in 1980s, and I was dealing with a large number of brands as you would have really got to know about it. It was very common for the salespeople to say that, well, I'm going to revert to you, or the customer. It was difficult for the customer to reach out because the offices would be closed. The only way to reach out is the telephone, if there is a telephone, and then the telephone landlines were difficult to be reached out to. And you would have almost one full day or 2 days go by and things like that. So by that time period, the difficulty levels would have only increased. In today's world, that doesn't happen. Today is a 24/7 world. So the way to monetize is first gain that, and then create a pitch to your financing firm, or let us say to the angel funds. And that pitch must have what your customers have to say about your solution, and not what you think is the solution. Not just merely talk about your own solution and the features of your solution, but also talk about what the customer has to say, because that gives the confidence to the angel funds, or that gives the confidence to the financiers itself for monetization purposes. The valuation always increases on the basis of the acceptance of the brand, and not on the basis of the technology. Keep this in mind. Technology ultimately turns into a no differentiator. It only commoditizes the product. It only commoditizes the solution. So the differentiation may be limited in time, because soon the competition is going to be taking over.
Okay, sir. So some of our students want to know what should be their area of focus or head start if they are wanting to make a career in the field of marketing. I think you will be a good guide for them here.
Well, I think the most important thing is, all of you to really understand how marketing is executed in today's time. So therefore, because, most of the time what happens is that in the classes, you learn the theory. You don't learn the execution. You don't learn the practice. My submission is that, think of getting into the market and really understanding the customer in a retail shop, for example. When you're going to a retailer, for example, when you're going to buy something, don't merely pick up something that you have bought, but also look at around. What are the customers buying, and just simply observe, just quietly observe. Observation is very critical, and I've often said that, selling makes the mayor go. So even in a digital kind of a medium, you've got to be selling. Only thing is that the selling modes are now different. So you've got to be really looking at how do you really reach out to the customer. And that's where I say it's the execution that is more important and not just merely the concept. Concept will help you to understand marketing, but your ability to execute. So sell an idea to your friend, sell an idea to let us say your teachers, sell an idea to your family, to sell an idea to your community itself. And if you are able to do that, I think that's the best way to do it. If you are able to sell it to your friends, friends may buy it still. But if you are able to sell it, not to your friends only, but to the friends, but to the entire group of students within your own community itself, or to your entire community, then you're a good marketer.
So, thank you, sir. This is it. We don't have any more questions here. So I would like to hand over now to the HOD of our department, Ms. Iti Danduna, for a vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure being over here. And I hope I was able to stir some thought in your mind. And if I've been able to stir your mind, if I've been able to excite you about marketing today, I think I would have achieved the objective of my coming and talking to you all. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And thank you, Ms. Dandana.
Sir, I, on behalf of Shivaji College and Business Economic Society, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to Dr. Saxena for giving us time and gracing his important work and sharing with us his findings and opinions today. As my invitation was a surprise to you, the acceptance was honor to me. I'm really grateful to you, sir, for accepting the invitation. Actually, the technology introduced and connected me to you when I attended your webinar organized by Tata McGraw. And since then, I was keen in inviting you to our college webinar so that my students also get the privilege to learn from renowned academician and a marketing expert. It's truly an honor, sir. I would like to acknowledge your exposition on the subject marketing and sharing the wide critical coverage on its redefinition, from thinking about the next normal to making it work, innovations, personalization, from digital skills and competitive advantage to societal responsibility, yes, with honesty and trust are now more important than ever. Thank you so much, Dr. Saxena. I would also like to extend my thanks to all my colleagues, Ms. Urvashi, Dr. Parul, Ms. Aditi, for their unconditional support. I would thank the students team involved in its execution. I would also like to thank all participants who could make it to this webinar. I'm sure each one of us has benefit that has integrated the knowledge into the real world. I thank again Dr. Saxena for being with us. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. The event wouldn't have been overseen without your consistent support and efforts. We appreciate and thank you all for being here. We are sharing a feedback form. You all are requested to fill it. Also, for more sessions like this, stay tuned and follow us on our social media pages. Thank you once again for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Stay connected and stay safe.